Hello friends, this is Scott, and we're down here at the homestead. You see, we got some animals excited to see me out here. They think I'm going to feed them some corn or do something, but that's not the topic of today's video. I'm wearing a brown shirt, so that maybe give you a hint as to what I'm doing today, because today is all about poop. It's all about the manures. It's all about the worm bin. If you remember last year, I moved these big old tires. I'll probably put a little footage in there in this video just to show you all the pain I had to do to get these tires moved because they're huge and heavy. But I filled it all up with cow manure and then leaves and a little bit of kitchen scraps. And the worms have been doing their thing. And I'm excited because this is my favorite thing to do, is to build soil and to play with the soil. And I've got some really good, again, this was all manures pretty much. And now it's going to be great soil. I tested a little bit yesterday and it looks pretty good. I haven't checked very deep though to see how many worms I have, because I want to start populating the 3-bin system as well as the static bin system here. Also with worms, so that I always have a supply of worms in either one of 3 places. So I'm excited. I've got my wheelbarrow and my compost screen here, and we are going to dig into this. I know there's lots of bugs, and last year I found 2 salamanders, so it was pretty cool to see those. I don't know if they're still there. We'll see what we get. I decided I'm not going to move these tires again to get to the material. In one of my last turning videos, I broke my little fork, but that kind of turned into a nice little tool that I can use to just kind of scoop this material out. I am going to put it through a compost screen, and then what I'm going to take it is I'm going to use it, like I've been saying, in my asparagus bed, which has turned out really good. So yeah, let's hope we can get enough material out of here to bury my asparagus really nicely and get that fertility there, and also it will help with some insulation for winter. So I'm excited. Once I get done with this project, I'm going to go out in the pastures and I'm going to collect some new manures, because I got to refill this for next year. So again, it takes once a year I empty this bin. And that's my plan, and it's pretty much the best stuff you can get. It's just straight manures and with worm castings and fully composted and ready to roll. So yeah, it's a little bit of a sunny day today. I hope this video is coming out okay in the audio. But I'm just going to get in here and start doing some digging, some screening, and I'm going to show you what the finished product is that we're going to put on the asparagus bed. So let's get started. So this video was October of last year, and I was trying to move this big old tire. I moved the smaller tire on top, which is about half the weight probably. But yeah, I was really struggling to get this tire moved, and I'd moved it a couple times, and again, every time I guess I'm getting old because I forget how hard it is to move. But yeah, this one was a heavy one, and it was full of compost, so I didn't have a chance to dump all the stuff that was inside the tire. So yeah, I'm struggling, and I'm trying to find a way to get this tire up, and I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to do whatever I can to do it, and if I have to put this tire back down, it means I have to put it back up. So I'm going to, bound and determined to get this tire moved, one way or the other. And yeah, it was a struggle, and I about killed myself doing it, and about stroked out. But again, as I mentioned in my last video, when I did this tire move, I didn't want to become part of the compost. So I don't think I'll be moving this tire again anytime soon. But yep, I was able to get it up finally and get it moved to its new location, which is right across the path from where it was. But again, the mice and the insects were terrible against this wall, so I wanted to give the cats an opportunity to get in here and at least deal with the mice. So yeah, got it moved across, and again, I filled it with manures last fall, and here's a look at what we've got. I did put manure, leaves, and a little bit of grass clippings, but I didn't really mess with it much. I did water it a couple times, but yeah, so this is basically 11-month-old material that the worms have gone through, and that's a big old cow patty, but as you see here, as I squeeze it, it's all busted down, broken down, and pretty much composted. So I'm going to get through here with the compost screen and see what I can get, and I have a special purpose, but there's a close-up of a red wiggler. So yep, they're small, but they're mighty, and they do a great job in my compost bin. But I want to mass produce those worms, and so that's what I'll be working on also. But again, the first tire on top is not nearly as heavy as the bottom, so I was able to get that moved out. I wasn't going to originally move it, but you know what? Bad back and all, I'm not going to stoop down that much. So yeah, this first tire was easy to move. And then I had a bunch of leaves that I had stored, they were insulated from last year. So I'm going to move all that out of the way before I start screening the compost and see what kind of material I get out of it. Now, it should be the best stuff ever, because all it is literally cow and horse manure and red worm castings. They've eaten through it. And so it should be really rich stuff for the special purpose that I have for it, which is the asparagus bed that I put in this year. Now, I had to double plant the asparagus because it didn't come in good. I waited too long to plant some of the crowns, and they died off, I think. But I'm really pleased with the way the asparagus has turned out. And I think this material will be great in helping it grow for years and years and years. But there's a close-up of what's in this material, and you see lots of bugs. There's pill bugs, and I don't know, there's some gray bugs. I don't even know what they are, but tons of worms. Again, there's another red wiggler. And again, tons of material, tons of food for the chickens. And I love a living compost. That's why I do this. I don't want dead compost. I don't want sterilized compost with no life in it. I want compost that has life in it, because that feeds everything, and that just keeps the whole cycle going. But I'm taking some of this material, which has got lots of worms in it, and I'm throwing it in my 3-bin system. And as you'll see later in the video, I'll be putting more into that and more into the static compost bin. But here's a close-up look of a couple handfuls of the good stuff. That's all basically manures and worm castings. But as I'm digging in here with my little broken hay fork, that's kind of hurting my back. So, but it is what it is. I'll switch off here to another tool here in a minute. But yep, just screening it through my 1/2-inch hardware cloth screen. And we're going to get down to the good stuff. And here's a kind of a little bit of a speed relay of what it takes. But I did take the material that didn't screen through the screen. I either threw it in the 3-bin system or the static bin. But look at all those worms. We got tons of red worms. Now, red worms are a manure and a leaf litter worm. They're not a soil worm. So this is the perfect material for them to be living in and to consume. But as you see, there's tons of worms. And a lot of those are falling through with my screen. And where I put them, the chickens will get into them and have a lot of treats. So, but again, there's not just earthworms in here or red wigglers. There's all kinds of pill bugs and centipedes and all kinds of other critters. Again, it's a living compost. And that's what I want to put into my soil. I don't want just sterilized. If I was to compost in those metal containers that just heat up, they just kill everything. There's no life in it whatsoever. But there's my static bin, and again, I'm putting some worm starts in there. I'll probably do a worm video also to kind of show you more specifically of how I'm trying to populate these other bins, because I want red worms in multiple systems. I don't want them just in one. But the bindweed, as I've shown you in previous videos, are just always a pain, and that's all bindweed that couldn't find the light. So yeah, but there's a wheelbarrow full of the good stuff. That is the best stuff that you probably could ever find. And it's got tons of worms on it. So wherever I put it, the chickens are going to dig through it. But it's the best stuff I think that money can't buy, because you couldn't find it, anything this rich. But yeah, there's a handful of the good stuff there, a couple handfuls. And I'm excited to put that in its final destination, which is the asparagus bed. Now, this is the bed that I just put in this year. And again, I had some mixed results with initial plantings because I waited too long and some of the crowns died, but looks pretty good. I've got a couple blank spaces, and you see it toward the wall. I'm going to dig some up that I have from my Salt Lake residents and bring them down here that are fully mature, probably 4 or 5-year-old crowns. So I'm going to bring some more mature crowns down so I can actually harvest something. But again, this is the first year, and I probably have to wait a couple more years before I can actually get a sizable harvest or any harvest out of these asparagus crowns. But this is the best asparagus bed I've ever created, I think. And again, it's fairly shallow right now, so by putting this compost on here, it'll help feed the roots of the crowns, and it'll also help provide some insulation. I will come through here with some more, fertility, whatever I can come up with, but I'm also going to, mulch it heavily with leaves so that these crowns are protected from the severe winters we have down here at the homestead. But there's a half of a bed kind of filled up, and then there's a full bed. So again, a wheelbarrow did pretty good. I'm not expecting a huge amount of volume of compost from the tires, but they do the wonders. And again, the chickens were in here right away, and there's tons of life. And again, I want living compost. I want compost that's going to attract all the critters to come in here and feed. I want the worms to come up from the soil, subsoil, and feed on the soil on the top surface. But after I'm done, is I got to come out here into the pasture, and you see there's lots of nature's goodness deposited by the horse and the cows, and I need to collect this material and refill those tire bins to to get another load of compost for next year. So I want to use this as the kind of the premium compost I'm going to use in my asparagus every year. And it's not going to produce a ton, but I want it to produce enough just to be able to fertilize that asparagus, because asparagus is a long living crop and it could go 20, 25 years if you take care of it. So I want to definitely every year add some fertility and then let the earth's life from below come up and consume it and drag it down into the soil and feed those crowns. So there's a wheelbarrow full of manure, and I'm going to fill this bin back. I didn't empty the bin fully because I want to make sure that I have other worms in there just so I can repopulate. So I decided that 2 wheelbarrows would probably be enough to fill this bottom tire, and then I want insulation, so I'm not going to fill it all the way up with the top tire. I'll bring leaves down here in the fall, and I'll fill that up with leaves just to make sure it's fully insulated for the winter. But did great last year and the year before, and there you go. There's a full tire of manure, and those worms that are still left in there will go, start working on that material. I'm going to wet it down because this material does dry out, but worms like a wet environment, not soppy, but just nice and wet. So I'll get this watered in good. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wheel that tire back over, and if I can run over any chickens. But again, the chickens are out with the cats and everything else, and they're just going to live in the garden for the rest of the growing season. They're not going to hurt anything, or very little. They're helping kill some of the grasshoppers and other insects that are problematic, and they're enjoying themselves, and I want them to have a good life. They're producing some wonderful eggs for me. But here's the secret sauce for the compost: is a couple buckets of the kitchen compost I had from my Salt Lake residence. And that blue bucket was pretty old stuff, and as you see here, I dropped it. But yeah, that's some old stuff. That stuff's been in the bucket for months. But this yellow bucket's fairly fresh stuff, so there's a lot of liquid in it, and that'll help feed those worms. But as you see all the buzzing around, we got lots of flies this time of the year, and I don't want that. So I went and got some old grass clippings that I'd cut without any pesticides, and I go ahead and threw those in there just to cover up those kitchen scraps. So I don't want the flies to be breeding, a big breeding ground for more nuisance pests. So there we go. But as you see, I was able to inoculate the compost bin with a lot of worms in that, and worm eggs, as well as the static bin. And I'm going to go out in the pasture, and in a subsequent video I'll show you. I'm going to get some more manures and fill this bottom layer up so that the worms have a good place to live as I stack more of the larger composting materials into that static bin. Let them sit and let Mother Nature do the job. Well, thanks for watching this video. If you like what you see, please hit that subscribe button, like, share, and comment. Thank you.